Hello, welcome to the Happy Families podcast. My name's Dr. Justin Coulson, and today on the pod, the question we get asked all the time, why do you homeschool? Today, Kylie and I answer that question and the research behind it. Stay with us. Hello, welcome to the Happy Families podcast, where you get real parenting solutions every single day. This is Australia's most downloaded parenting podcast. We're Justin and Kylie Coulson. I'm the author of a bunch of books about raising happy families, and we're also the parents of 6 kids. Oh, and grandparents of a beautiful baby granddaughter. We received this message from a Melbourne mum just recently and thought it was a good topic for discussion.
I was wondering if you could please give us an update on your homeschool journey and how you got started. I'm very interested. I've actually gone over your old podcasts from probably about a year ago, and I'm very interested to hear how things are going. I'm sort of swinging from one side to the other to whether to take the leap into homeschool, and I really love to hear your perspective. Thank you.
Kylie, I really would love to answer this question. I've got a number of things that I've jotted down in my notes, but I know that this is really your domain. You do you do 99% of the homeschooling. I get involved every now and again. I have some conversations, but really.
Is that the surf lessons?
Yeah.
Okay,
And I take it to other stuff. I'm involved. Gosh, that made me look like a bad dad. So first of all, why did we start doing it? Let's go through that, and then we'll talk about how it's going.
It's a conversation we've been having for more than 10 years, a decade.
Easily.
And I literally couldn't say yes. And I look back now and wish that I had of.
Yeah.
Just number one, had the confidence in myself, but number two, trusted that when we were questioning what was happening for our children in the school system, that we were actually right. Because with one of our children particularly, who's now finished school, her education experience would have completely changed as a result.
So when we were having this conversation, there were a range of factors that we were talking about. I'm going to encompass several of them in one that I'm going to call safety. So from a physical point of view and emotional point of view, when you homeschool, there's no bullying, there's no school violence, there's no unsafe peer dynamics. The kids can learn without anxiety and performance pressure and comparison culture. I think it's really interesting. I mentioned this in last week's pod, but bullying and school refusal are driving Australia's homeschooling surge. It's up 92% nationally since 2020. It's up 163% in Queensland. So those issues were right at the top of the ladder for us. And also things around neurodivergence. Like, schools are designed for neurotypical brains. 2/3 of homeschooling families have a child who has a disability or health issues. And the great thing about homeschooling is you can tailor the pace, you can tailor the environment, you can tailor your expectations to the actual child. So we saw that and thought there's definitely an opportunity for us to serve our children better by doing that.
And it's interesting, when I sat down with Emily at the end of last year to ask her whether or not we should continue homeschooling. We've been doing it for now just over 2 years.
Or do you want to go back to big school, real school for like, what was it, grade 6 this year?
And the things that she shared, she rattled them off without a second of thinking.
Yeah.
It was literally, she loves the fact that I'm her teacher, that she only has to do about 2 hours of school every day. And so, and there's so much flexibility around when that learning schedule takes place, that she gets to do it in a familiar environment like home, that she has beautiful friends that we've made in the homeschool community. She gets to have regular catch-ups with them, not just outside of school. We're trying to squeeze it in between all the extracurricular and family activities.
So we can literally give them a call and say, hey, are you free on Wednesday? We thought we might get the kids together for 4 hours.
But there is lots of free time for her to be creative.
Yeah.
And there's more time available for her to actually earn money. Like, those were things that really jumped out at her.
Yeah, there's not much that I can add to that. It's a really nice list. There's more self-directed learning is what I had on my list. So that aligns with autonomy and self-determination theory, and it fosters intrinsic motivation, not compliance. It's more flexible. Like, you're going to go overseas with Emily a little bit later this year for a couple of weeks, and that's going to be a homeschool study trip. And you can do homeschooling while you're there, but also the experience that you're going to have with her is just amazing.
You're jealous, aren't you?
Yeah, because I'm staying here so that I can go into a whole lot of schools during the school term and give talks to parents, which is an important thing that I do as well. Have we? I don't know if we've talked about the extracurricular opportunities,
Nope.
but there's so many. There's so many, and you've got the space and the time. Like you're not doing this crazy panicked rush between 4:30 p.m. and 6:30 p.m.
You know
and
what's so
missing
funny?
dinners.
I hadn't even really thought about that, but because there's so much space around her learning, she actually enjoys the process so much more.
Yeah, for sure. So there's some of the reasons that we decided to kick on and do it. And maybe the biggest one for me is just the freedom from the academic pressure. Like she's not worried about NAPLAN results. She's not worried about having to sit down and do a school test or anything like that. I know some people say, well, kids should get used to that stuff. I disagree. Like why? Why do they need to do it? There's nothing like that happens in the workplace. Like if you're at work, nobody's saying, I need an answer to this and you've got 5 seconds to give it to me, right? Like you can Google stuff, you can talk to colleagues about things. And when you do get to a point, let's say you're a surgeon or a pilot, yes, you do need to know stuff, of course, but you learn.
But you're motivated to learn at that point.
That's right. You're an adult, you're learning it, and then you go and do it and you practice it. It's a totally different context. So they're the reasons that we did it. And there are no regrets. It is hard. It's really impactful on your life particularly. Like it takes away your freedom. You don't have that time during the day that parents whose kids go to school have. But anyway, for the Melbourne mum, they're the reasons that we started it, and they're the reasons that Emily loves it as well. After the break, I've done some digging. I've got data. I've got actual data on how homeschool kids do compared to kids who go to school. It's coming up next. Stay with us. We're back. This is the Happy Families podcast. Today, homeschooling. Is it good for kids? Is it not good for kids? How's it working out for us? That's the topic of conversation.
I am really curious. What does the research actually say?
It's hard to find good research because homeschooling is so varied.
And that's been my experience in that every homeschooling family I meet, there is no two families that do it the same.
Everyone's doing it differently.
Everyone's doing it differently.
And there is one particularly big brand called Yuka that is probably the dominant syllabus or curriculum here in Australia. So there are a lot of people who are doing that, but they still do it their way. Like there's so much variance in how people do it. So
which in and of itself suggests that there's no one size fits all for children.
Right.
And families.
And so I can't find any evidence that homeschooling is quote unquote better or that traditional schooling is quote unquote better. And I think that's a really important point to make. Why is that? Well, I've already mentioned the variation in the way that people do homeschooling. Some people are doing like a rigorous classical education and bringing in tutors, and the children are doing piano and they're doing jiu-jitsu and they're doing all the things.
French lessons.
Exactly. And other families are like, we're unschooling. There's no rules. The kids can learn what they want when they want. So that makes it challenging. There's no standardized testing. Like it's very, very, very rare to find homeschoolers whose kids are doing NAPLAN. There's a lot of self-selection bias as well in the data. And I know I'm sort of geeking out on this, but it's really important to highlight why this is tricky. So families who homeschool are already kind of different. Like they've got more flexibility. Quite often, not always, but quite often they'll be more involved in their children's lives. They'll often have more resources because it really does require at least one parent to be actively full-time engaged with the children.
Or they're actively choosing to go without.
Right, yes, exactly, which we've discussed on the podcast before, so certainly something that we've stepped into. So here's what the research does show. First off, when it comes to Australian data, the homeschoolers who do NAPLAN, and I know I said most don't, but there are some who do, and the homeschoolers who are doing NAPLAN because their parents are heavily involved and they do want to make sure the kids aren't quote unquote falling behind, they score 70 marks higher on average, 7-0. They are scoring really, really well on NAPLAN. And again, there's a selection bias in that, so I'm not sure how much we can take from it. But the other thing that I found was some US data, which showed that homeschooled kids in the US are scoring 15 to 30 percentile points higher on standardized tests. So there's that. There's also the social emotional outcomes, and they're quite positive, right? So international surveys show that homeschoolers do not have any social deficits versus traditionally schooled peers. There's no evidence of worse mental health outcomes, and some studies actually indicate that there is better self-concept with homeschool kids and lower anxiety. So I think that that's really interesting data. And the longer-term outcomes, if I was to summarize it in one sentence, I would say that long-term outcomes are encouraging. What do I mean by that? Kids who are homeschooled attend university at similar or higher rates to kids who go through a traditional schooling pathway, and there's no evidence anywhere of career disadvantage. Some studies actually show that homeschooled kids are more entrepreneurial. They have an advantage around their creativity in starting businesses and that kind of thing.
So what I'm taking from all of that is that there actually isn't any clear data at all.
I think that would be a misrepresentation of what data we do have. The data is mixed, but it's encouraging is how I would say it. So we don't have research proving that homeschooling is academically superior. I can say that categorically. But I would also reverse that and say we don't have any research proving that traditional schooling is better than homeschooling either.
From our personal experience in homeschooling, in traditional schooling, and even your schooling experience. I mean, you finished high school in the bottom 15% of the state.
Yeah.
You were pretty much a high school dropout for all intents and purposes.
Yeah,
really did not attend classes.
I'm not meaning to laugh, but yes.
And yet you sit here with
I've got
years and
PhD.
years of experience and education under your belt, because there came a point in your life where you were motivated to learn. And I think that happens for most of us. At some point in our lives, we're motivated to learn. And when we're motivated to learn, learning is so good.
Yeah.
Like we enjoy the process even when it's hard because it's so good and we want something. And if I was to go back to my 10 years ago when we started the conversation.
And we still had 6 kids in school back then.
I wish that I had have known that making that one decision was not set in concrete. It didn't lock us into a decision.
Yeah.
If you want to do homeschooling, give it a go. It's a massive learning curve as a parent, taking on that new responsibility and working out how you and your child work together. But if it doesn't work, you just go back to school.
We've got some friends who did exactly that. They gave it a crack. Wasn't working for them. Kids back at school. No dramas. No harm. No foul. Everyone's happy.
And I'd be lying if I didn't say that at the beginning of this year, I kind of was hoping she might want to go back to school because I kind of would like my life back.
Yeah.
But the more I thought about it and the more I talked with her about it, it's just a no.
So we need to wrap this up. Let me share the last of the evidence. Okay, so the evidence shows that motivated, engaged parents are going to produce good outcomes for their kids regardless of the method of schooling that they use, whether they're homeschooled or whether they're doing distance education or whether they're in a traditional schooling path or some kind of hybrid. Motivated, engaged parents generally produce better outcomes for their kids. Full stop, end of story. The evidence also shows that one-size-fits-all systems do fail a lot of kids, especially the neurodivergent kids. And the evidence is also there that school-related anxiety and bullying and mental health issues are real and growing and are the primary driver of the exodus from the school system into homeschooling. And our lived experience, as you've just so eloquently shared, and I'll just really quickly summarize as we sum up, is that traditional school wasn't working for our kids, and we watched them struggle with anxiety. We watched them lose their love of learning. We watched them come home exhausted and stressed. And there were days where we literally carried them to the car kicking and screaming in their pajamas and said, you need to go to school today because that's what people do. They go to school. And we'd get them to the car park. I'm getting emotional thinking about it. And we would literally force them into a place that they didn't want to be. And it was torture for them and for us.
And I have to add, the only place they didn't want to be.
Yes.
Like literally, we didn't have that experience in any
Anywhere
other
else.
setting. So it's not like it was setting them up for failure because they just didn't want to be somewhere. This is the only place that they were struggling.
So at home, I would argue, and this is not an apologetic argument for homeschooling. I'm not trying to say this is what you should do, but Melbourne Mum asked, and this is our position on it now. For our children, we've found that at home they're safer, they're learning what's exciting them, we've got an enormous amount of flexibility, they've got time for passions, and homeschooling is certainly not for everyone. Right? Like, it's just not. But the research, while it doesn't show that it's academically superior, it also doesn't show that it's any worse. and for our family and for our kids.
For now.
For now, absolutely the right choice. Okay. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks for the question. We love your questions. You can send them through to podcasts@happyfamilies.com.au. Send your voice notes through there, or just jump onto the website, happyfamilies.com.au. Scroll down to where it says podcasts and hit us up with your questions there. We love them coming through. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Mim Hammonds provides research, admin, and all of the other support that we need for the pod. And if you'd like more support for your family, you'll find it on our social media pages or at happyfamilies.com.au.